Good evening. Welcome back to another Classic Comics livecast. Going to be going over some topics this week again from Hollywood, particularly going to be looking at Disney and Warner Brothers and their financial difficulties, and also going to touch on some issues around the reshoots with Indiana Jones. What else here? The Daredevil and Penguin shows have been delayed due to the strike. Talk a little about Secret Invasion, about the new Star Wars movies that are coming out, and I don't know, a couple other things. But mostly it's going to be about Disney and Warner Brothers and their various financial problems, the problems they're having with their stock price, et cetera, et cetera. But first of all, I want to thank everyone who tunes in to the live stream, both during the stream and on a rewatch. Thank you very much. And if it's your first time here, please do consider subbing to the channel. Now, let's just go ahead and get into it here. So, again, we're going to take a look at Disney and some of the problems they're having. All right, this is in Variety. So Disney's stock price on uncertainty over streaming profitability and ad weakness. And let me just check something right here. Is this? Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay. So shares of Disney slipped as much as 9% in trading Thursday after the media conglomerate reported earnings for the first 3 months of 2023. Disney's earnings report showed progress on the cost-cutting front, with streaming losses narrowing for the quarter, but analysts cited a weak advertising outlook and uncertainty over when its streaming business can contribute to the bottom line. At market close Thursday, Disney's stock price was $92.31 a share, down 8.7 for the day, and off its 52-week high of 126.48. Disney Plus lost 4 million subscribers for the quarter ended April 1st, including a loss of 300,000 in the US and Canada. But the company narrowed its streaming losses by 400 million, down 26% year over year, as Disney said it would remove content from Disney Plus to cut costs, while also expecting to raise prices on the ad-free Disney Plus tier. In addition, CEO Bob Iger announced that the company would launch an integrated Disney Plus Hulu one app experience in the US by the end of 2023, indicating Disney's desire to hold on to Hulu. And yeah, and I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but Disney promised their shareholders a certain number of users uh, and a certain level of income coming from Disney Plus by, I believe it's 2024. And there are some who think that they're acquiring Hulu and sort of bundling Disney and Hulu together is basically how they're going to meet that objective, because Disney Plus on its own isn't going to get there. It doesn't have enough users. It isn't making money. And so they're going to bundle Hulu and Disney together and say, there you go. There, we have it all. We have the users we promised you. However, as Hulu negotiations with Comcast are still in flux, quote, we believe it would be unwise for Disney to start talking up 2025 streaming profitability ahead of that closure, unquote. MoffettNathanson senior analyst Michael Nathanson wrote in a research note. As a result, any commentary about cost savings and revenue synergies that would arise from uniting Hulu and Disney Plus globally will have to wait until this tug of war is resolved, unquote. In addition, the biggest unknown variable is Disney's linear TV biz and the impact of higher sports rights costs, according to Nathanson. ESPN has pending renewals coming with the NBA, UFC, Pac-12, and college football playoffs. That said, despite Disney's massive investment and losses in its streaming segment and the continuing collapse of linear networks, the long-term profit picture should be brighter than the market knows, and thus we think the stock is undervalued, Nathanson opined. Interesting. Under the terms of the Disney Comcast deal for Hulu, the guaranteed minimum value of Hulu is 27.5 billion, meaning Comcast's 33% stake is worth a minimum of about 9.2 billion. The integration of Hulu into Disney Plus does not mean that Disney, quote, would be willing to pay any price for the Comcast stake, unquote. Morningstar analyst Neil Macker wrote in a research note. Oh, okay. He wrote that previous bit. So the majority of the content on Hulu comes from Disney and other third parties outside of Comcast, he pointed out. As such, in the US, Disney could rebrand the Hulu vertical as Star with minimal content loss. On the call, Iger said Disney has had constructive talks with Comcast over a potential Hulu deal, but declined to predict any particular outcome. Where we are headed is for one experience with general entertainment content on Disney Plus, he told analysts. If ultimately Hulu is that solution, we're bullish about that. Morningstar lowered its fair value estimate on Disney from 155 to 145 a share, citing slower streaming subscribers gains coupled with a faster decline at its linear TV networks. Disney posted a disappointing fiscal second quarter of 2023 as, quote, Iger has begun to make his mark. Yeah, for better or worse. Macker wrote in the notes, Disney's theme parks remain impressive with strong top and bottom line results and streaming losses continue to shrink, but Disney Plus lost subscribers and Hulu posted very modest gains. While the Mouse House's direct-to-consumer segment appears on the way to profitability by the end of fiscal 2024, we think Disney needs to expand the direct-to-customer base and drive stronger top-line growth to replace declining linear networks revenue. Disney is in the early stages of restructuring its media businesses, taking significant cost out and revisiting its content monetization strategy. Morgan Stanley analyst Benjamin Swinburne wrote in a note to clients. The analyst maintained an overweight rating on the stock. I'm not sure. I don't know what overweight means in terms of a stock price. More than 40% of Disney's Plus subscribers in the US are bundled with Hulu. And per Swinburne's analysis, the move to integrate Hulu programming into Disney Plus likely increases the likelihood of Disney's expected buyout of Comcast's Hulu stake early next year. While Disney's overall quality results were modestly ahead of our expectations and overall adjusted operating income, the outlook for the second half of its 2023 fiscal year suggests our full year estimates will need to be revised lower, primarily due to the weak ad environment, according to the analyst. Yet, ad revenue is down all over the place, especially online. That's why a lot of these online websites like Vice and that sort of thing, that's why they're all going broke. Swinburne called out a clear prioritization by management on maximizing media revenues and returns in an admittedly difficult environment. Macquarie analyst Tim Nolan maintained an outperform rating on Disney stock with a 12-month price target of $125 a share. The messaging was positive, but the current situation is mixed. Disney is making headway in its cost saving and operating efficiency efforts amid a deteriorating linear TV business, both structurally and cyclically. DTC subs fell for the second straight quarter, but ARPU rose and operating losses narrowed nicely. Parks were robust again. Disney appears on track to meet or beat its 5.5 billion cost savings target over the next several years, Nolan wrote, although he added that the company will incur a 1.5 to 1.8 billion impairment charge as it removes some content from Disney Plus. Coming off a round of layoffs and restructuring, Disney is starting to make some progress at reining in costs, noted Third Bridge analyst Jamie Lumley. However, the direct-to-consumer segment continues to be a loss leader, and there remains a gap between where the company is and where it wants to be. So I don't know. What I get from this is that most analysts seem to expect Disney to rebound in the long term and come back, have their stock go back up and be profitable again. But in the near term, at least, they're hurting. They're hurting a lot, and look, everybody's hurting. Warner Brothers is hurting too. I'll get to Warner Brothers in a minute. They're also in bad shape. But let me move on to the next one here because I got another Disney-related article here. Let me bring that up. All right, and this is on bounding into comics. Financial analyst speculates the Walt Disney Company has lost nearly 900 million at the box office in the past year. So, financial and box office analyst Valiant Renegade recently shared his speculation and calculations that the Walt Disney Company has lost nearly 900 million at the box office in the past year. In a recent video upload, Valiant Renegade looked at 8 of the most recent releases coming from studios owned by Walt Disney, including Lightyear, Thor Love and Thunder, Strange World, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Little Mermaid, and Elemental. He shared the estimated production budgets for these films as reported by box office tracking websites such as The Numbers, as well as estimated marketing costs from outlets such as Deadline to provide estimated total costs for each film as well as a sum total cost for all the films combined. That sum total came to 2.75 billion. From there, Valiant Renegade explains how box office grosses return to Walt Disney Company. He shares that typically 55% of domestic grosses, 43% of international grosses, and 25% of the box office in China come back to the studio. Next, the analyst shared his estimates for how much money each film returned to the Walt Disney Company and a sum total of returns. That sum total clocked in at 1.86 billion. Valiant Renegade then subtracted the 2.75 billion cost from the 1.86 billion in returns, which comes to nearly 900 million or 890 million. Come back here. However, he notes this is just the loss at the box office for the past year and does not factor in the economic opportunity cost that Walt Disney has brought upon itself by launching its Disney Plus streaming service and refusing to license its films to other streaming services and companies such as Netflix, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Prime Video, Paramount, or Comcast. Valiant Renegade explains one of the things we always talk about here. It is the perfect time to remind everybody is that Disney consumes all of its own content post theatrical, meaning that Disney used to license their big content out like the entire MCU to places like Netflix for years. Those were billions of dollars worth of third party contracts that have now been taken off the table. Continue. So not only do we need to consider how much money Disney has lost at the box office, we also need to consider how much money Disney has lost in economic opportunity costs. You see, that's how much money they could have made had they actually taken these films and licensed them to Netflix or Amazon Prime, or even similar to what Universal does with a split pay one window. If Disney had just taken the Universal type deal with those two major streamers, Disney would have a lot more money in its pocket, but they've chosen to keep it all home to support Disney Plus. Valiant Renegade then provides a hypothetical that each of the films could have received a 125 million of pay one window value if they had been licensed to another streaming platform. Multiply that by 8 and the economic opportunity loss is 1 billion. He notes that while the company has been able to support these losses in the short term with revenues from their theme parks and linear TV, mainly due to live sports, it won't last forever. That can't go on. It's just simple numbers, folks, Valiant Renegade asserts. That's where we are. The Walt Disney Company is just making all the wrong decisions, not only creatively, but in the distribution channels as well. Company CEO Bob Iger recognized the ballooning costs and the diminished returns at the box office during the company's quarter one fiscal year 23 earning results webcast. He said, in addition, we are going to lean into our franchises, our core franchises, and our brands. I talked about curation in general entertainment. We have to be better at curating the Disney and the Pixar and the Marvel and the Star Wars of it all. That's an interesting sentence. And of course, reduce costs on everything that we make. While we are extremely proud of what's on the screen, it's gotten to a point where it's extraordinarily expensive. We want all the quality, we want the quality, but we have to look at what they cost us. Not only is the company losing out big at the box office, but they've racked up massive costs at Disney Plus. Iger noted he's attempting to massively cut those costs and that many of the programs they funded were not actually driving anyone to subscribe to the streaming service. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, no kidding. During the company's quarter two fiscal year 23 earnings results webcast, he stated, Quote, as we grow the business in terms of the global footprint, we realize that we made a lot of content that is not necessarily driving sub growth. And we're getting much more surgical about what it is we make. So as we look to reduce content spending, we're looking to reduce it in a way that should not have any impact at all on subs, he asserted. We believe there's an opportunity for us to focus more on real sub drivers. He continued, one interesting example I should throw marketing into where when you make a lot of content, everything needs to be marketed. You're spending a lot of money marketing things that are not going to have an impact on the bottom except negatively due to the marketing costs. One thing we also know is that our films, those that release theatrically, big tentpole movies in particular, are great sub drivers. But we were spending our marketing costs so thin that, or spreading our marketing costs so thin that we were not allocating enough money to market them when they came on the service. He then relayed, as witnessed by the ones that are coming up, including Avatar, Little Mermaid, Guardians of the Galaxy, Indiana Jones, Elemental, etc., where we actually believe we have an opportunity to lean into those more, put the right marketing dollars against it, allocate more away from programming that was not driving subs at all. I guess this is part of the maturation process as we grow into a business that we had never been in. We are learning a lot more about it. Specifically, we are learning a lot more about how our content behaves on the service and what it is consumers want, Iger concluded. In fact, the company's former chief financial officer, Christine McCarthy, also revealed during that same call, quote, we are in the process of reviewing the content on our direct-to-consumer services to align with the strategic changes in our approach to content curation that you've heard Bob discuss. As a result, we will be removing certain content from our streaming platform and currently expect to make an impairment charge of approximately 1.5 to 1.8 billion. The charge, which will not be recorded in our segment results, will primarily be recognized in the third quarter as we complete our review and remove the content. And going forward, we intend to produce lower volumes of content in alignment with this strategic shift. Yeah, well, they definitely made too much. They've definitely put out a lot of crap nobody wanted to see, like this Secret Invasion show that's on right now, being a perfect example. And I mean, they've got other stuff coming up like that Echo show. Um, Agatha Harkness. Who wanted an Agatha Harkness show? Nobody. Who wanted an Echo show? Nobody. But they're making them anyway. All right. Now that's enough about Disney for the moment. But they're not the only big studio that is hurting right now. Speaking of financial losses, this is from the Direct. The Flash movie suffers worst drop in DC history. The Flash took a dive in the second weekend at the domestic box office, beating out an unfortunate DC record. DC has had a tough year at the box office so far as it releases the final four movies in the old studio regime ahead of James Gunn's reboot. Shazam! Fury of the Gods became the worst earner in DCEU history, with a disappointing worldwide haul, something the studio reportedly at least partially blames on the imminent superhero reboot. Yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of it. I think these things are kind of dead on arrival and everybody knows it. And so a lot of people are just not showing up. And I've said this before, I think they've done so many disappointing movies that I think they've really just damaged the brand at this point, and they're going to have a hard time getting people enthusiastic about anything. Despite plenty of anticipation and critical buzz, The Flash looks on course to go the same way with a disappointing box office opening despite previously positive projections for the movie's gross. Shared by box office expert Luis Fernando, The Flash suffered a massive drop at the box office in its second weekend, grossing an estimated 15.3 million after an already disappointing 55 million opening weekend. Ouch. The massive decline means The Flash faced the biggest second week box office drop in DC history with 72.5%, beating out the previous record of 71.5%, which was set by The Suicide Squad during the height of the pandemic. Biggest second weekend drops from DC movies at the box office can be seen below. And they give the list here. It's what? Flash, then Suicide Squad, then Jonah Hex, then Superman, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Shazam. Oof, boy. Even going beyond that, The Flash suffered the third worst second weekend drop in superhero movie history at the domestic box office, only being beaten by Morbius' 73% and Steel's 78. Oh my God, Steel. Man, if you're on a list with Steel, that's not good. The worst drops for superhero Steel. Go away, you. Okay. The worst drops for superhero movies domestically are listed below. So we got Steel, Morbius, The Flash, X-Men Dark Phoenix, The Suicide Squad, Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, Jonah Hex, Hulk. That would be the first one, the Ang Lee one. Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Elektra. The Flash currently has a domestic total of 87.6 million and is said to be eyeing a total US run of about 110 to 120 million on an insane budget of 220 million, not including marketing and other major costs. Man, they're going to lose a ton on this thing. Oh my God. The multiverse blockbuster has also crossed the 200 million mark worldwide, now sitting at 210 million across all territories, including the US. The total will likely lead The Flash as the ninth highest grossing of the 13 DCEU movies at the domestic box office when all is said and done. Wow, really? Okay, but this is domestic. This is domestic. Okay, so not worldwide. Because I was about to say, because Aquaman made $1 billion. So domestically, so it's Wonder Woman is number one. Then Aquaman, Batman versus Superman, the first Suicide Squad, Man of Steel. I would have thought Man of Steel would be higher than that. I thought it would be at least 300 million. Justice League, Black Adam, Shazam, Flash, Birds of Prey, Shazam, Fear of the Gods, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman 84. Whew. Man, what a what a list. What a list. Flash finished third at the domestic box office for the June 23 to 25 weekend, narrowly beating out Jennifer Lawrence's comedy No Hard Feelings, but falling behind Sony Pictures' Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Pixar's Elemental. Okay. Both Shazam 2 and Flash have now proved to be box office disappointments for Warner Brothers, which will undoubtedly leave the studio worried about the fate of its two remaining DC movies ahead of the reboot, Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2. As James Gunn has already announced, Zolo Maraduenas, I hope I'm saying that right, Zolo Maraduenas Jaime Reyes, aka Blue Beetle, will be the first DCU character. There may still be time to salvage the financial chances of his solo debut. Perhaps if Blue Beetle's place in the reboot can be worked into the marketing, fans may be more intrigued to give it a chance. I hope people will. I like the Blue Beetle character, and I like Zolo. I mean, he was really good. Really liked him on Cobra Kai. I mean, I think it would have been better if he had done this movie, like, say, 5 years ago, when he was a little younger, because Jaime's supposed to be a teenager. But I think he was a good choice. He was a good choice for the role, and I think it was a good idea for them to do it. I don't know. I just think there's so much apathy that is set in at this point. I'm not sure the movie's going to be able to overcome that. With Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom likely to suffer the same box office fate as Shazam 2 and The Flash, especially after the worrying news from test screenings, there's a conceivable world where Blue Beetle could come out as the highest grossing DC movie of 2023. And after churning out 220 million on the Flash's production and reportedly plenty more on an extensive marketing campaign, the movie now seems unlikely to turn a profit. Yeah, and could also lose Warner Brothers a massive amount of money. Fans have blamed this disappointment on a number of factors, including the Ezra Miller controversy, the mixed word of mouth, the imminent reboot, superhero fatigue, and several main criticisms facing the movie. But realistically, the true explanation lies in a mix of these factors, which combine to topple the Flash. Although this failure is unlikely to impact much in the way of DC's future, especially James Gunn's reboot, The Flash's unexpected flop may prompt Warner Brothers to be more careful with handing out massive budgets going forward. Yeah, I bet they will. Kind of like Disney, they're probably going to be really looking at cutting costs going forward. It's going to be interesting to see how that works. Now, one thing with James Gunn is he comes from a horror background, so he's used to working with lower budgets. So I'd imagine he can work with a little less money and still make it work. I would think, but you never know. Okay, now let's stay on the topic of Warner Brothers here. So I got more about them. And this comes from Variety. Warner Brothers Discovery stock drops after Max presentation. Warner Brothers Discovery shares were down 6% at the close of trading Wednesday on the heels of the company's expansive presentation of its plans to overhaul the HBO Max streamer. And honestly, it doesn't make much sense to me to rename it Max. You know, HBO's a bigger name than Cinemax was. So it seems to me you'd want to keep the HBO name unless they're planning to maybe create another streaming service down the line that's got HBO in it. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's likely, but I don't know. I don't think dumping the HBO name makes much sense. Warner Brothers Discovery shares have been battered over the past year as the company dealt with post-merger cost cutting and management realignment. Uh, Dow Jones Index fell a modest 38.2 points, while the Nasdaq dropped 102 points or 1%. The hour-long WB Discovery presentation was held during trading hours at 10 a.m. Wall Street's verdict on WB's Discovery's plans is still not in, but the immediate reaction to investors indicates that the company still has a long road ahead in sorting out its profit centers in the age of streaming. Uh, WB Discovery CEO David Zaslav and his core team detailed the plan to relaunch the 3-year-old HBO Max platform simply as Max. As of May 2023, the executive raised the curtain on a combined service that showcases the prime assets of HBO, Turner, and the Discovery suite of lifestyle channels. Also confirmed were plans for a slew of new shows tied to existing brands, including a highly ambitious 10-year plan for 7 seasons of Harry Potter, one for each of the original novels, and another spinoff of the Warner Brothers TV produced sitcom juggernaut, The Big Bang Theory. Okay. Yeah, I understand them wanting to cut costs and them trying to strip things down, but like I say, losing the HBO brand just doesn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion. All right, and we got another one here regarding Warner Brothers. All right, Warner Brothers Discovery is negotiating a $500 million deal to sell film and TV music publishing assets. Warner Brothers Discovery is negotiating to sell around half of the storied Warner Studios film and TV music publishing assets for approximately 500 million, three sources confirmed to Variety. While it is unclear exactly which assets are on the table, one source says that the rights to slightly less than half of the catalog, with a price of around 500 million, are likely to go to a major label, with Sony said to be in the lead. The catalog is believed to include music from such films as Purple Rain, Evita, Sweeney Todd, Rent, several Batman films, and many more titles, as well as songs included in films such as Casablanca. Iconic titles to be sure, but again, it is unclear exactly which rights are in play. Top attorney Alan Grubman is said to be overseeing the deal for Warner Discovery CEO David Zaslav. However, some observers cast a skeptical eye on the deal, saying that many of the company's assets are more than a half century old and are declining in value and difficult to exploit. They are said to consist largely of film themes and cues, with comparatively few conventional songs that would seem to have little familiarity or resonance in the present or future. The catalog, the catalog is currently under a multi-year administration deal with Universal Music Publishing. Reps for Warner Discovery, Sony, and Universal either declined or did not respond to Variety's request for comment. If uh, if reports are accurate, the deal would be a welcome one for the company and its investors at a tumultuous time that includes a writer's strike that has crippled Hollywood and hundreds of layoffs across its Discovery and Turner brands, with more expected in the coming months. Not to mention Zaslav's recent firing of his personally selected CNN CEO Chris Licht after just 1 year, and the network's controversial town hall with former President Donald Trump. What does that have to do with anything? The windfall from such a sale, coming at the top of a still booming market for music catalogs, would help the company to pay down a $49.5 billion debt. The report also comes amid a drastically changing environment for the television business as a whole. Domestic cable channels, including Discovery, TNT, TBS, TLC, HDTV, Food Network, and CNN, were once the envy of the industry in terms of viewership and profitability. But the fast changing paid TV marketplace and the rise of on demand streaming has upended the reliable cable TV earnings power that made the former Time Warner a dynamo in the 90s and early 2000s. Yep. So I think, yeah, I mean, in a way, it's kind of sad. They're trying to sell off these assets because honestly, they don't really see much more value in them. I saw also a related story. Apparently, they're making big changes to Turner Classic Movies. I think Turner Classic Movies isn't going to be around much longer. Probably. They're probably going to cancel that whole channel at some point because obviously it's declining in viewership. Obviously, they're mostly older films that appeal to older people, and the audience is, I mean, no way to other way to put it really, the audience is dying off. And so they're seeing declining viewership there. And it's the same thing with these assets they're talking about. A lot of them are old and they just aren't worth much anymore. And they're trying to sell them now and get what little value they can for them because they're so desperate for money. Kind of sad, as I say. All right. Now let's talk about we got San Diego Comic-Con coming up, but it's probably going to be a bit of a dull con this year because some studios aren't going to be showing up. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Marvel Studios skipping Comic Con's Hall H. Marvel Studios on for its customary Hall H presentation in July, the Hollywood Reporter has confirmed. The Disney owned studio has long maintained it will only attend the con when it can truly deliver. Marvel panels are far and away considered the highlights of most years, with attendees camping out overnight for a seat in the 6,500 person hall. In 2022, the Marvel Studios boss laid out an expansive slate for its multiverse saga. This year's convention, to be held July 20 to 23, comes as Marvel has pressed pause on a few titles, including Thunderbolts, Blade, and Daredevil Born Again. Work is not expected to start up until after the writer's strike, and as a result, Disney also pushed back a few of its key films in a release date shuffle announced last week. The news comes amid a challenging time for Comic Con, which last year returned to its traditional in person event after moving largely virtual in 2020 and 2021 amid the pandemic. The convention, which at its height can attract around 160,000 attendees, must contend with a writer's strike that would prevent showrunners of TV series from sitting on panels to attend their work. It also faces the looming specter of a potential SAG after strike, which would prevent actors from attending as well. A SAG after strike could begin anytime after June 30th, when the union's contract with the studios expires. Although it is skipping Hall H, Marvel Studios will still have a presence on the convention floor. And while big panels get much of the attention, Comic Con is also known for creative cosplay and the chance to connect with artists and creators of smaller properties. Yeah, they don't have anything to show. They don't have anything to present. And they're not the only ones who are going to be skipping out on San Diego Comic Con this year. Let me bring this next article up. Okay, again, this is Variety. Comic Con crisis. Marvel, Netflix, Sony, HBO, and Universal to skip San Diego Comic Con as Fest faces another existential threat. Can San Diego, can San Diego Comic Con catch a break? For 2 years, the biggest annual fan convention in North America was forced to cancel the 5 day gathering due to the COVID-19 pandemic, placing Comic Con International, the nonprofit organization that runs San Diego Comic Con, under unprecedented financial strain. Last year, San Diego Comic Con came roaring back with a masked and vaccinated convention that was a robust success, with blockbuster Hall H panels for the Star Trek TV universe, House of the Dragon, The Walking Dead, and especially Marvel Studios. This year's Comic Con, which is scheduled to release July 19th, less than a month away, is increasingly likely to have none of those panels. At least that's what studios across the industry are anticipating. If SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP cannot come to terms by the June 30th contract deadline and the Guild goes on strike, actors will almost certainly join writers and showrunners in sending out promotional events like Comic-Con, leaving studios with almost no one to populate panels in front of thousands of expectant fans. Amid that uncertainty, several studios have preemptively nixed plans for a robust presence at San Diego Comic-Con this year. Disney and its subsidiaries Marvel Studios and Lucasfilm are not planning any panels, cutting off the chance to showcase the cast for upcoming projects like The Marvels. Loki season 2. Oh man, I was so looking forward to that Marvels panel, bro. Loki season 2, Ahsoka, and Haunted Mansion. HBO, which has True Detective season 4 coming soon, and House of the Dragon season 2 still in production, isn't going, nor are Sony Pictures with Gran Turismo and Craven the Hunter this year, and Universal Pictures with Last Voyage of the Demeter, Strays, and The Exorcist this year. Doing a remake of Exorcist, huh? Great. And Netflix, which just held its massive Tudum fan event in Brazil, where it debuted first looks at big budget genre series, including its One Piece adaptation, is also sitting out San Diego Comic Con this year. Other studios are maintaining a wait and see posture. Warner Brothers, which needs a robust PR boost for upcoming DC features Blue Beetle and Aquaman. Blunt Philly Reviews. Hey, man, thank you for stopping by. Year of the Exorcisms, I guess. Yeah, there have been a lot of Exorcist movies this year. I mean, there was that The Pope's Exorcist. That's the one Russell Crowe did that was out a little while back, right? Let's see. Well, where was I? Okay, so the upcoming DC features Blue Beetle, Aquaman, and the Lost Kingdom has yet to rule out skipping Comic Con, and the company's streaming service Max is planning on bringing some animation titles to the convention. Paramount Pictures expects to hold a panel for the animated feature Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, but its streamer Paramount Plus has yet to commit to panels for its Star Trek shows. Not NBC will only move forward with its panels if there is no actor strike, but that protocol does not necessarily extend to its streamer Peacock. And Amazon plans to have some kind of presence. Season 2 of The Wheel of Time and The Boys Generation V are due to premiere in the fall, but the streamer is still sorting out what that will be. Apple, meanwhile, has remained tight lipped about what, if any, presence they may have. In the absence of panels, some studios may lean on activations and promotional stunts outside the San Diego Convention Center to generate fan interest. But that's cold comfort to SDCC itself, which has thrived for over a decade on a steady stream of A-list stars and marquee projects streaming through its cavernous ballrooms. When reached by Variety, Comic Con spokesperson David Glanzer provided a statement that avoids saying anything definitive about how SDCC may look in the wake of an actors' strike, but does make clear the organizers expect to go on with the event regardless. Quote, with regard to the strike and its possible effects on Comic Con, we tend to refrain from speculation or forecasting. I will say our hope is for a steady or for a speedy resolution that will prove beneficial to all parties and will allow everyone to continue the work they love. Until then, we continue to diligently work on our summer event in the hopes of making it as fun, educational, and celebratory as in years past. Unquote. Any studio holdouts will have to make a decision very soon. Schedules will start rolling out on July 5th, but they may be making it in the dark. If SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP extend contract negotiations beyond the June 30th deadline, it's a bind no superhero will be able to save. I hadn't considered that. Yeah, they may wind up extending the strike deadline. That would really make a problem for them. But I wonder, I mean, how much have they got to show anyway? Because so much of the stuff I think they was delayed because of the pandemic. So much is being delayed now because of the writer strike. I wonder if they wouldn't have that much to show anyway. Okay, where am I at? Okay, 40 minutes. All right. I'm just going to go a little while longer here. And speaking of things shutting down, so this is from Deadline. Daredevil Born Again and Penguin Productions paused until after WGA strike. Dang it, we were all looking forward to that Penguin show, right? We all wanted that. Daredevil Born Again and The Penguin finally have thrown in the towel. Deadline has learned that the Disney Plus series and the Max drama will remain on pause until the end of the WGA strike, whenever that may be. New York-based writers routinely have picketed the Marvel series Daredevil outside of its base at Silver Cup East. Production repeatedly has been shut down on the drama, most recently on June 12th. Production on the revival was previously paused by Sunrise picketing when members of the Teamster Local 817 and IATSE Locals 829 and 52 refused to cross the line. It was then suspended for the rest of the week. It's been roughly the same for the Penguin. The Batman spinoff has also been targeted repeatedly by WGA East picketers. Daredevil Born Again, which has been filming in and around New York, is 3 months into an 8-month shoot on an 18-episode new season for Disney Plus. I didn't realize there were that many episodes for it. I figured it was just like maybe 12, 13. Written in Written and executive produced by Matt Corman and Chris Ord, who cannot provide writing services on set due to the strike. The new installment centers on Charlie Cox's Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock, an attorney by day and crime fighter by night. Vincent D'Onofrio reprises his role as mob boss Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. The Penguin is from Matt Reeves. The 8-episode drama sees Colin Farrell reprising his Batman villain, while Kristen Milioti plays female lead Sophia Falcone. The series comes from Warner Brothers Television and DC Studios. I thought that Colin Farrell was actually quite good in that movie, but I mean, I never considered. I mean, who wants to see a Penguin series? I mean, I'm so tired of them doing this crap where it's like, we're gonna give you a Batman show, but there's no Batman. And they literally, I mean, what they've done literally, like they've done an Alfred show, because we all wanted an Alfred show. We all wanted to see Alfred's adventures before he became Batman's butler. Uh, okay. Where am I at? 40th. I'll do a couple more here, then we'll wrap up. Okay, now I got one article here. This is on IGN from James Gunn. I can bring it up. James Gunn explains how his DCU will differ from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn has explained how his revamped DCU won't be just a clone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even comparing it to Game of Thrones in one respect. Speaking on the Inside of You podcast, Gunn said the DCU will lean more into the fantasy setting of traditional comic books and keep secret identities as a major component. If you look at the MCU, there are very few traditional superheroes, Gunn said. There was never a guy with a secret identity until Spider-Man in the MCU. Their Cap was turned into a soldier even though he wears a mask. Iron Man added himself at the end of the first Iron Man because they don't want to deal with the whole secret identity stuff. But there's a bit more of a fantasy element to the DCU because there are these larger than life superheroes. And for me, there's Superman and Clark Kent. They're two different characters, and you have to find a way to deal with them that's as grounded as possible within this world of DC. Marvel kept up the secret identity shtick for spoilers, MCU Spider-Man trilogy. Barely 2 movies before Peter Parker was revealed as Spidey, but it sounds like this will be an ongoing struggle for Superman and DC's other superheroes. Gunn said that DCU will embrace DC's fantastical world as well, not treading on the MCU's heavy use of New York City, San Francisco, and other real life locations. One of the things that I love about DC that excites me about DC is that, in a way, it's another alternate history. It is Gotham and Metropolis and Star City and Bloodhaven and all these different places in this other reality, and it makes it little bit like Westeros in some ways. I love it in that way. I love that we get to create true world building in DC. It isn't just we're throwing some superheroes on Earth. I think right now that's one of the key differences. Well, I like hearing that. I agree with what he's saying. I've agreed with a lot of what he said regarding DC and the characters and the directions they're planning to go. But I don't know, been burned so many times that it's hard. Like I say, it's hard to just have any real enthusiasm. All right, we'll do one more here, and then I'll call it a night because we're at 45 minutes. All righty, and this is concerning the Indy movie that's coming out this coming week, or actually be later this week. Okay, so this is again is from Bounding into Comics. Harrison Ford admits Lucasfilm will rework the ending of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and appears to confirm leaks James Mangold. It was rumored back in June 2021 by YouTuber Overlord DVD that, quote, 2 endings are supposedly being considered in the script. I guess they've written and they're going to shoot both of them. Both endings allegedly have old Indiana Jones dying at the end of this movie. But in one of the rumored endings, young Indiana Jones dies alongside old Indiana Jones, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge swoops in like a vulture, picks the hat up, and takes his place moving forward. A separate rumor from the Daily Mail in September 2021 claimed, quote, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is being tipped to replace the veteran actor as a female version of the fictional professor of archaeology in the adventure movie franchise. Daily Mail show business editor Katie Hind about the rumor. It would be a huge statement and a great role for Phoebe. Another source stated the gossip on the set is that this character will slot into the leading role. Overlord DVD would follow up his initial rumor, claiming that the film actually had 6 endings in November. We've been told out of the 6 endings, they tested the best one that gets a 35% approval from test audiences. We've been told that Bridge put on the hat in every ending, he added. Overlord DVD then clarified, quote, all my spies actually said was Phoebe Waller-Bridge puts on Indy's hat, takes Indy's whip, and in a brave and stunning display of girl power, she becomes the bestest Indy ever at the end of all 6 versions of the movie. Mangold denied the rumors of Indiana Jones being replaced, writing on Twitter in December, quote, one more time, no one is taking over or replacing Indy or donning his hat, nor is he being erased through some contrivance. And he never was, not in any cut or script. But trolls will troll. That's how they get their clicks. He added, and please don't exhaust me pointing out how once in a while a troll is right. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut now and then. All one has to do is look at set photos and interviews, and you get enough info to make wild guesses about a movie's plot. Okay, well, that's true enough. The difference between trolling a-holes and everyone else is they are trying to make money off your feelings about other films and culture war politics. They push controversial guesses as coming from sources to gin up clicks. Let it go. End. Mangold's denial of the rumors was previously called into question when the film's composer, John Williams revealed that Mangold and Lucasfilm planned to film a different ending. Williams said, here are 3 pieces from Indiana Jones 5. I felt we would be finished with Indiana Jones after 4. You know, Harrison Ford, you all know who Harrison Ford is. And Harrison is 78 years old, and he's much younger than I am. And I thought, well, if he can do 5 of them, I try I have to try to do the final five also. He then stated, so we just about completed the film. We maybe have another ending to shoot and to record maybe in a couple of weeks. This was in December. So Mangold attempted to refute Williams's comments, writing on Twitter, John was mistaken. Maybe he reads Twitter too much. He then declared, we're not shooting new endings, never did. The film is 99% finished and being rated by the MPAA. Mangold concluded, this imagined zany ending with Indy being erased and replaced as a fever dream of wounded folks angry about other films I did not make. When asked for clarification on Williams's comments, Mangold answered, joking, mistaken, or misinformed, it's not happening. However, when further pressed on the issue, Mangold claims Williams was, quote, fully informed, just after claiming he was either, quote, joking, mistaken, or misinformed. He tweeted, I agree that he's one of the greatest composers in the history of film and also one of the most lovely people on earth, and he's fully informed. Now appears that it was Mangold who was mistaken or he was intentionally trying to mislead. Actor Harrison Ford admitted to Spanish language outlet Espinoff, quote, we did a little work on the ending, which is the last thing I shot with Karen Allen, who has been in a substantial part of the whole thing, but appears in this story only briefly at the end, but with a very strong emotional hook. I felt nostalgia, a sense of accomplishment. I'm proud of the film, happy with the film. Every good thing, there comes a right time to go on to something else. I really enjoyed the process of making this film. I'm very happy with it, so I left the set that day content, Ford concluded. Uh, in a video on WDW Pro's channel, Midnight's Edge founder Andre, I'm not going to even pronounce Andre's last name because I'll screw it up, reacted to Ford's comments and noted that fans needed to hold Mangold accountable for disparaging them. Said, hold him accountable for it. Retweet his earlier statement. Should I do this in an Andre voice? No, probably not. Uh, Retweet his earlier statements and don't let him get away with it. Simple as that. Now, of course, no one should do anything more than that. When you blatantly lied and you have unfairly maligned and attacked your own audience and you are lying in doing so, then I see no problem with reminding him of that fact, especially when the movie fails as it's going to. WD Pro added Matt Kadish and Doom Cock deserve apologies at this point. They were repeatedly correct. Unclear what the exact ending of the film will be, but an alleged leaked ending by Reddit user Lunic Jones claims that Indiana Jones, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Helena, and Mads Mikkelsen's Dr. Jurgen Voller end up in the distant past. And I should guess I should say spoiler warnings if you if you're planning to see the movie, because I think they're giving away the ending here. They end up in the distant past during the Roman siege of Syracuse. Voller and his compatriots end up dying in a plane crash over the battle, while Indiana Jones and Elena are able to escape. Upon landing, they encounter Archimedes, who retrieves the Dial of Destiny from Voller's corpse and ensures that it can only be used to travel back in time to him in Syracuse during the siege. He also takes possession of one of Voller's watches that gives him knowledge of the device. Lunic Jones explains as Helena tells him that Archimedes has rigged the dial and making sure it only sends one back to Syracuse on the day of the siege so that they could save him. We understand it's thanks to this jump in time that he found his knowledge about watches and how to complete the dial. From there, Lunic Jones details that Indiana Jones does not want to return to his present, but would rather stay in Syracuse because he believes there is, quote, nothing for him in 1969, unquote. In contrast, Helena attempts to convince Indy to return to the present, believing if he stays in the past, he would change the course of history. Indy is unconvinced by Helena's argument, so she resorts to punching him and knocking him out. When Indy awakes, he's back in 1969 in his bed. He then reproaches Helena for having brought him back to the present, although there's nothing for him there. However, Helena counters that there is something for him to continue living for, and Marion shows up in his apartment with a number of groceries. The film earlier made it clear that Marion and he were either divorced or on the brink of divorce, as divorce papers were pinned to Indy's fridge, held up by a picture of Marion. The two appear to reconcile whatever contrived issue the film gives them to have them embrace in a kiss, with the plot synopsis explaining. They reenact the boat scene from Indy in reverse before Indy kisses her. Finally, the film reportedly ends with a shot of Indiana Jones's hat on a drawing line outside the apartment with what appears to be Jones's hand grabbing it off the line as the camera zooms onto the hat in a small circle similar to old Warner Brothers cartoons. Huh. Yeah, this thing's going to be a train wreck. And is going to be more financial losses for Disney. And I, for one, don't mind that at all. Now let me look here right quick. Is there anything else I want to hit? Oh, I guess I'll take a look at this. One more right quick. Let me bring this up. And again, this is on Bounding into Comics. The upcoming Star Wars film focusing on Rey will see her train a female apprentice destined to emerge as a future leader. A new plot synopsis has already revealed that the upcoming Star Wars film starring Daisy Ridley that was repeatedly recently announced at Star Wars Celebration in April. In a press release during Star Wars Celebration, Lucasfilm shared that Kathleen Kennedy then revealed that Star Wars will head into the future with a new feature set 15 years after the last events of the Skywalker saga. The press release added Charmin Obaid Chinoy will tell the story of rebuilding the new Jedi Order and the powers that rise to tear it down. The director then delighted fans by welcoming Daisy Ridley to stage, confirming she will be reprising her beloved role as Rey in the upcoming movie. Following this announcement at Star Television, Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy provided some more details about the film to IGN. She explained, well, we're 15 years out from Rise of Skywalker, so we're kind of post-war, post-First Order Jedi, and the Jedi are in disarray. And there's a, well, are there even any Jedi? I mean, do they even exist anymore? And there's a lot of discussion around who are the Jedi, what are they doing, what's the state of the galaxy. And she's attempting to rebuild the Jedi Order based on the books, based on what she promised Luke. So that's where we're going. When asked if Luke's depiction of a cautionary tale in the Disney sequel trilogy will play any part in this upcoming film, Kennedy responded, quote, I don't know as we'll spend a lot of time in flashbacks or force ghosts or things like that, but certainly the spirit of what he represents to her is going to be significant. In other words, Mark Hamill ain't going to be in this. Kennedy would also provide details to Empire about the film as well. What we're exploring is the evolution of the Jedi. We're going very far back. We're looking at the present, and now we're moving 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. Kennedy went on to provide more details about Obaid Chinoy's film. Quote, the First Order has fallen, the Jedi are in chaos. There's even a question of how many exist anymore, and Rey's building the new Jedi Order based on the text she was given and that Luke imparted to her. Towards the end of May, Kennedy appeared on Entertainment Weekly's Dagobah Dispatch, where she shared even more details. Quote, well, as we move into the future space, the story is about 15 years outside of Rise of Skywalker. Obviously, we realize that post-war, post-First Order, Rise of the New Jedi Order. We left Episode 9 with Rey making a commitment to Luke that she would rebuild the Jedi Order, and so here we are. And it took a lot of discussion because obviously we've been developing stories in different spaces, and television has been a big focus on our attention. But there's still so much interest in what happens after Rise of Skywalker, so we are excited to be doing that now, she concluded. Later in the interview, when asked about James Mangold's announced Star Wars film, Kennedy pivoted the question to the Rey film. She answered, quote, we've been talking a lot about going well into the past, and one of the things that's really knitting this all together, obviously, are the Jedi. What happened with the Jedi over time? Much like history. How did the Jedi evolve? They were wiped out with Order 66, then they gradually have been coming back. The question that we're going to ask with the new Jedi Order and with Rey is, does the galaxy need them anymore? Do we want them back? So there's a lot of food for thought in what we're doing, and whether it's in the past, present, or future. Now, according to issue 1335 of Production Weekly via Screen Rant, a new synopsis for the film has been released. It reads, set roughly 15 years after Rey's victory over Palpatine at the end of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, the sequel dwells The sequel delves into Rey's courageous endeavor to restore the Jedi Order, where she assumes the role of a mentor to two promising young students, a girl and a boy. As her training progresses, it becomes evident that the girl possesses extraordinary abilities, of course, destined to emerge as the future leader. Gee, I wonder if the boy is going to turn out to be a Sith. I wonder. It should not come as a surprise that this new film would also put the focus on female characters. Kennedy announced back in 2015 that reshaping Lucasfilm with feminism ideology was one of her priorities and was being significantly aided with the purchase of the company by the Walt Disney Company. She said during Fortune magazine's Most Powerful Women Summit, quote, the fact that the company was bought by the Walt Disney Company has been amazing because they are very much support the fact that we are trying to grow in the workforce a number of women in executive positions and in all positions inside the company. And with the movies that we are making and with the protagonists that we are putting in the story. So I get a huge amount of support with that, she continued. She then touted, but we have 50% of our executive team is women, and 6 out of 8 of the people in my story group are women. I'm sure that's a lot of people that would be surprised that we're making Star Wars movies, and the majority of the people involved in the development of those stories are women. It wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think it's making a huge difference in the stories they are trying to tell. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could certainly say that. If going from being wildly profitable to not being wildly profitable. Okay. All right. So we're at 8. It's an even hour. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. And again, I want to thank those who tuned in for watching during the stream and those who will watch again on the rewatch. And if you're new here, please do consider subbing to the channel. And I hope you all have a good evening, and I will see you all next week. Good night.